I was perched on Brian's lap, wearing a sultry miniskirt paired with black stockings, ready to confess my feelings. But he cast me a cold glance and said, "Get off." Later, I went out on a date with someone else, still in my black stockings. Brian, however, publicly carried me off over his shoulder. When I resisted, I got a few smacks on my rear for my trouble. "You've got some nerve. Wearing those black stockings, to seduce other men." That night, as he hooked my leg over his arm, the very same black stockings were torn to shreds in his hands. The bedroom was dimly lit as I pinned Joseph to the bed. I wore a form-fitting miniskirt, black stockings clinging to my legs. Fixing my gaze on his long legs, I straddled him without hesitation. "Joseph, I like," before I could finish, his icy voice interrupted me. "Get off." His expression was frosty, and my heart instantly plummeted. What was the point of confessing? Clueless man. "Fine, I'll get off." I stood up with brisk efficiency, flinging the door open without sparing him another glance. Yet as I slammed the door behind me, I couldn't help but shout over my shoulder, "You think you're so great just because I like you? Who do you think you are? So what if you've got a face I adore? So what if you've got 8-pack abs? Guess what? I don't like you anymore." The moment I heard the door behind me creak open, I bolted. My legs moved like lightning, and just as Joseph's hand reached to grab my collar, I ducked and yanked the door open, slipping out in the nick of time. I imagined his nose nearly smashing into the door, and an impish sense of satisfaction swelled in me. Clapping my hands together, I muttered, "Try to mess with me now." Still, knowing Joseph's vengeful streak, I decided it was best to make my escape. Joseph and I have been next-door neighbors since we were kids. Now, we'd both just received our college acceptance letters. As fate would have it, we got into the same university, though we'll be in different programs. On the night of our high school graduation dance, fueled by a bit too much liquid courage, I cornered Joseph under the big tree outside his house as he was about to head home. Given our years of friendship, I thought confessing to him would be a sure win. Leaning one hand against the tree, I tipped his chin up with the other, preparing for a bold kiss. But Joseph shoved me away. "What are you doing? You reek of alcohol. Go home." After that, I avoided him for days, torn between embarrassment and regret. Was I just drunk and reckless? But when university started, and I saw girls asking for his number, delivering water during his basketball games, and slipping him love notes, jealousy burned through me like wildfire. That's when I knew my feelings were real. But what I couldn't understand was why he rejected me. After all, he was the one who said he'd marry me when we grew up. Since my last confession to Joseph, I hadn't seen him in days. I didn't even want to go home until my mom finally pestered me into coming back for dinner. To my surprise, Joseph was there at the dinner table, despite supposedly being at school. Seeing him in those gray sweatpants stirred all kinds of wicked thoughts in me. Under the table, my foot, freed from its slipper, crept up the length of his sweatpants. As I spooned rice into my mouth, I sneaked glances at his face. For a brief moment, his stoic expression faltered, freezing in place. A triumphant smirk tugged at my lips, but the death glare he shot me made me immediately retract my foot. I hurried through the rest of my meal and escaped. Later, in my room, I overheard my mom talking to Joseph in the living room. I caught fragments of their conversation, something about starting a business, something about a partner. Suddenly, a thought hit me. About a month ago, my roommate casually mentioned that Joseph was partnering with another guy to start a business. A terrifying idea crept into my mind. Joseph never had girls hovering around him aside from me. He always gave off a stay-away vibe. Could it be that he likes guys? Once such a dreadful thought takes root, a flood of other clues comes rushing in. When I returned to school carrying that suspicion, I made a point of passing by the basketball court. I watched as Joseph turned down a bottle of water from a girl but accepted one from a male teammate instead. That guy, pale-skinned, baby-faced, and utterly adorable. The kind of guy everyone finds likable. Worse, after the game, the two of them went to the restroom together. Nina, my ever-curious friend, happened to walk by. She nudged me with her elbow. "Selena, what are you staring at? Why are you gawking at the men's restroom?" My lips twitched as I forced out a reply, "Nothing. I just saw Joseph and some little guy holding hands as they went in there." Gossip among girls travels faster than light. Nina, who was well aware of my feelings for Joseph, had always viewed him as an unattainable flower on a cliff, beautiful, but out of reach. That night, she dragged our roommates into an animated discussion. By the next day, the entire campus was buzzing. On the third day, the university forum exploded with a post titled, "Campus Heartthrob Joseph from the Computer Science Department rumored to have a boyfriend." The post even included photos of Joseph with the guy. Playing basketball together. Eating in the cafeteria together. Even, holding hands as they headed to the restroom together. As the rumor snowballed, my heart plummeted. My suspicions felt more and more like reality. Joseph really likes guys. And worse, he already has a boyfriend. Nina glanced at the gossip on her phone, then at my distracted expression. Patting my shoulder, she said, "It's okay. There are plenty of attractive guys out there. I'll help you find a new target." Nina, known as a social butterfly for her endless connections across campus clubs, wasted no time. That very night, she organized a gathering. In college, these gatherings were basically code for blind group dates. I found myself sitting across from a senior who had a gentle demeanor and wore gold-rimmed glasses. Maybe it wouldn't hurt to spend more time with other guys. At least it'd keep me from staring at Joseph's perpetually sour face. "You're Selena, right?" The guy opposite me broke the ice. I blinked, curious how he already knew my name. "I'm Dylan. We crossed paths on the first day of school. I wanted to invite you to check out our club, but you didn't seem interested. You glanced at the booth and walked away." His words made me reflexively rub my nose in embarrassment. "Hi, Dylan." I wasn't used to this kind of setting and felt at a loss for words, but Dylan seemed naturally charismatic. He kept the conversation flowing, chatting about anything and everything. After the meal, he asked for my number and even walked me back to my dorm. It was a pleasant night until I spotted Joseph leaning against a tree near the dormitory entrance. His posture screamed indifference, one leg bent, one hand in his pocket, a lollipop sticking out of his mouth like he was smoking. Ever since the idea that Joseph might like guys lodged itself in my brain, he'd lost some of the sparkle I used to see in him. "Where were you? Why didn't you reply to my messages?" Joseph's question was aimed at me, but his gaze never wavered from Dylan behind me. "I didn't check my phone." I turned to Dylan with a polite smile. "Thanks for walking me back." Dylan's lips curved into a warm smile. "No problem. Call me." "Bye." "Sure." As soon as Dylan left, I felt a strong hand spin me around abruptly. "Selena. You've really grown bold, huh?" I slapped Joseph's hand away from my collar. "I have no idea what you're talking about." Joseph pulled the lollipop out of his mouth and glared at me fiercely. "You don't know what I'm talking about? I waited outside your dorm all night, and you were out on a date with another guy? Selena, you're something else." With an enigmatic glance, Joseph turned and strode off, leaving me baffled by his sudden outburst. Back in my dorm, Nina was already waiting, her face alight with curiosity. "So, how did it go with Dylan tonight?" "Selena, he's been asking me about you on and off for quite a while now." I busied myself tidying up, brushing off her prying. "Oh, really? He's nice." To avoid further interrogation, I rushed through my nightly routine and climbed into bed. After that night, Joseph stopped seeking me out. And I didn't bother asking what he wanted either. Meanwhile, Dylan grew more attentive, messaging me every day and inviting me to join his club. He even showed up with coffee for me from time to time. Though I declined each time, Dylan always found a way to insist. Over time, I grew used to his persistence. Then one day, Dylan invited me to a forested area behind campus. I showed up in a black mini skirt and stockings. Not because I planned to dress up for him, but because Nina had said we had a girls' night later and insisted I look my best. I wasn't sure what Dylan wanted, but as soon as we entered the woods, I spotted Joseph with his rumored boyfriend. Joseph's eyes landed on me, and his brow furrowed slightly at the sight of my outfit. "What are you doing here?" What was I doing here? I was about to ask him the same thing. Before I could say a word, Dylan called out, "Selena, over here." I ignored Joseph and turned toward Dylan. But before I could take another step, a strong arm wrapped firmly around my waist. In one swift motion, I was thrown over a broad shoulder. I yelped, squirming against Joseph's hold. "Put me down, Joseph." "What are you doing?" My protests only earned me a few sharp slaps on my backside, making me freeze in shock. "You've got some nerve." Strutting around in black stockings to entice other men, Joseph growled. I pounded my fists against his back, but it was futile. To make matters worse, our spectacle drew stares from onlookers. Some even had the audacity to film us. Joseph carried me all the way to a car parked nearby, tossing me into the passenger seat. I caught a glimpse of myself in the rearview mirror, my cheeks flushed crimson with anger. Before I could unleash another protest, Joseph grabbed my face and kissed me. The kiss was cold and domineering, stealing the very breath from my lungs. I shoved him away with all my strength. "Shouldn't you be off on a date with your boyfriend? Why are you bothering me? You like men. Why are you messing with me?" My voice trembled with both anger and disbelief. That was my first kiss. The air inside the car felt suffocating, heavy with unspoken tension. Before I could process what had just happened, Joseph had me over his shoulder again, carrying me into his off-campus apartment. Once inside, he tossed me onto the bed. The sudden shift in weight left me off balance, unable to get up right away. "Joseph, what are you doing?" I demanded, panic rising in my chest. Joseph didn't answer immediately. Instead, he unhurriedly began undoing the buttons of his shirt. "You can test for yourself if I'm really gay." In that moment, his meaning hit me like a lightning bolt. "Joseph, stop it. You're scaring me." I kicked my legs in a desperate attempt to retreat, but Joseph's hand clamped around my ankle and pulled me back effortlessly. The air between us was thick with Joseph's crisp, clean scent, making my head spin. I could feel the heat radiating off my face. It must have been bright red by now. "Why are you sitting on top of me?" I stammered. Joseph pinned my wrists to the bed with ease, a sly smile playing on his lips. "Didn't you sit on me like this before?" At 189 centimeters tall, Joseph was all hard muscle, his regular gym sessions evident in every move he made. Now, his shirt hung loosely, 2 buttons undone, revealing a tantalizing glimpse of his defined abs. My gaze faltered, unconsciously tracing the curve of his collarbone down to the faint lines of his abdominal muscles. Noticing where my thoughts had wandered, Joseph grabbed my hand and guided it to his chest. "Want to touch?" he teased, his voice low and provocative. What kind of indecent remark was that? Was this really the Joseph I knew? Just as things were spiraling out of control, a faint rustling sound came from the door outside. "Joseph, I brought you some food." It was his mom's voice. Panic surged through me, my heart leaping into my throat. Before I could think of a way to explain myself, Joseph, unhurried as ever, buttoned up his shirt and pulled me out of the bedroom. "What's going on here?" his mom asked, her gaze flicking between us with suspicion. Joseph clasped my hand firmly in his, intertwining our fingers, and even lifted them slightly in a show of mock pride. "Isn't it obvious?" he said. The tips of my ears burned so fiercely I swore they might start steaming. "Lucy, it's not what you think." I stammered, my voice shaky. His mom cupped her hand over her mouth, stifling a laugh. All right. I knew this would happen sooner or later. I'll leave you two alone, she added with a knowing grin, practically dashing out the door. Before closing it behind her, she sent me a meaningful glance, and if I wasn't mistaken, her phone screen showed an active chat with my mom. I was doomed. As soon as the door clicked shut, I turned to Joseph, ready to demand an explanation. But before I could utter a word, he leaned in and silenced me with another kiss. I froze. My mind blank as Joseph's lips claimed mine for the second time. His deep voice resonated against my skin as he cupped a hand over my eyes. Close them, he murmured sensually. By the time the kiss ended, I was left breathless, staring at him in shock, unable to make sense of what he was doing. Joseph hooked a finger around mine, his tone possessive. Selena, from now on, you only wear black stockings for me. Anger surged through me. And I shoved him back. Joseph. You're the one who rejected me before. Joseph pressed me against the wall, his towering frame looming over mine. Selena, he said softly, I just thought confessions like that should come from me. And after that, you didn't give me another chance, did you? I thought about it for a moment. Ever since that day, I had been avoiding him, purposefully keeping my distance. Joseph leaned in closer, boxing me in entirely with his presence. He nipped at my earlobe, his voice dropping to a low whisper as he confessed his feelings. But what about that guy you made the front page with? Isn't he the one you like? Joseph tilted his head, his gaze steady. That's my business partner. We work on projects together. How else am I supposed to earn enough money to marry you after graduation? His words sent a rush of heat to my face, leaving me flustered and unsteady. Who said I'd marry you? I muttered, my voice barely audible. Before Joseph could corner me any further, I mustered all my strength, shoved him away, and bolted from his apartment. Even after returning to my dorm, my heart refused to calm, pounding relentlessly in my chest. On Friday after class, Nina dragged me to a bar. Selena, don't you dare leave. I already told everyone I'd bring a friend. If you bail, you'll make me look bad. I had planned to use the weekend to sort things out with Joseph, but Nina's pleading left me no choice. Reluctantly, I followed her to the bar, taking a seat at a corner table. After excusing myself to use the restroom, I returned to find a few new faces seated at our table. Back at the table, I froze. Sitting there were Joseph, his rumored boyfriend Adam, and Dylan. Dylan's eyes lit up when he saw me. He patted the seat next to him invitingly. Before I could react, Nina, oblivious to the tension, tugged me over and planted me beside Dylan. Selena, is everything okay after last time? Dylan leaned in, his voice low and intimate. I glanced at Joseph, whose expression was far from pleasant, and shook my head, a pang of guilt prickling in my chest. Joseph's rumored boyfriend, Adam, raised his glass with a faintly malicious smile. Hi, everyone. I'm Adam, he announced. He clinked his glass with mine before I could refuse, his grin unsettlingly sharp. Pleasure to meet you, Selena. Trying to deflect the tension, I downed the drink in one go. One glass turned into another, and then another. By the time Joseph slammed his own glass onto the table with a loud thud, his voice was hard and clipped. That's enough. Don't you think you've had enough? Adam's smile didn't falter, but his tone turned mocking. What's the matter? Are you protecting Selena now? I wasn't a heavy drinker by any means, but something about Adam's goading and maybe the sweetness of the drinks had me drinking more than I should have. My foolish, love-addled brain betrayed me. And now the alcohol's effect was hitting me hard. Dylan's hand casually brushed against my thigh, jolting me out of my haze. I instinctively shifted away, but Dylan's arm slid around my shoulders, pulling me closer. Careful, he murmured, his tone warm but unsettling. The contact made me deeply uncomfortable. A sinking feeling settling in my stomach. I caught Joseph's sharp glare from across the table and felt a wave of guilt wash over me. Mumbling an excuse, I got up and headed to the restroom, hoping to clear my head. When I emerged, Joseph was waiting for me in the hallway. Leaning against the wall, his white shirt stretched taut over the faint outline of his muscles. His expression was cold. His eyes sharp as they met mine. "Why are you drinking so much? Planning to avoid me all night?" His question felt unfair, and a lump of indignation rose in my throat. He hadn't exactly been running after me either, had he? Still, my voice came out small and trembling, betraying my frustration. "I wasn't." Before I could finish, Joseph pushed forward, pinning me against the wall. My hands were lifted above my head, and my heart raced wildly, as if it might break free from my chest. Joseph tilted my chin upward with his fingers, forcing me to meet his smoldering gaze. "Is Dylan so great?" he asked, his voice rough with irritation. "Is that why you'd rather sit next to him than come to me?" I didn't. My defense was interrupted by Dylan's voice, sharp and commanding. "What are you doing? Let her go." Joseph glanced lazily over his shoulder, his expression unimpressed. With a mocking laugh, he released me, crossing his arms over his chest. There was an untamed edge to him, a wildness that only made him more magnetic. "She's my girlfriend." "Since when is it your business?" Taking my hand, he brushed past Dylan with a sidelong glance. "My girlfriend is coming with me." As we walked out of the bar, Joseph added with a warning lilt, "Touch her again, and don't say I didn't warn you." Outside, I couldn't help but replay the scene in my head. Joseph's childish but undeniably satisfying display of possessiveness brought an unexpected giggle to my lips. "What are you laughing at?" Joseph asked, clearly still irritated. "You should have noticed his damn hand almost on your thigh," he muttered darkly. Ignoring his grumbling, I stepped closer, looping my arms around his neck. The alcohol dulled my inhibitions, and I practically draped myself over him. "Just now," I said, my voice teasing, "what did you call me again?" Joseph's lips curved into a faint smile, his large hand settling around my waist. "My baby girl. You gave me that title a year ago." I didn't even have time to process what he meant before the night sky erupted in a cascade of fireworks. I stared at Joseph, my heart bursting like the firework above us, unstoppable and overwhelming. What are you talking about?" I managed to ask, my voice barely above a whisper. Joseph's lips curled into a teasing smile. "That time in high school when you got drunk." My already foggy brain scrambled to recall, and suddenly, it hit me. The last time I got drunk, I had downed 3 bottles of beer in a fit of despair. I'd just received a dismal D on my math test, convinced I'd ruined any chance of getting into college, let alone the same one as Joseph. Squatting outside my house and throwing up miserably, Joseph had been the one to find me. He'd crouched beside me, sighing softly. "It's fine. I can teach you math." But I hadn't been receptive. "You can teach me now, but can you teach me for the rest of my life?" "I can." At the time, my alcohol-clouded brain couldn't comprehend that this was a shy boy's confession. "If you'd let me," he had continued, his voice careful and earnest. "Can I stay by your side for the rest of your life?" Drunk and irritable, I'd brushed his hand off my shoulder, scoffing. "We can't even get into the same college. What's the point of talking about forever? So childish." Now, looking back a year later, I couldn't shake the memory of Joseph's expression, serious and almost pleading. "Selena," he'd said then, "if we get into the same college, will you be my girlfriend?" My reply had been muffled and half asleep. "Sure, whatever." The next morning, I'd conveniently forgotten the entire exchange. If there's one thing people dread most, it's the late-night remembrance of humiliating moments from the past. Thinking about Joseph's unreciprocated confession back then made me want to crawl into a hole. Was that why he'd refused me before? Because he was mad I'd forgotten? I poked Joseph's cheek. "Be honest. Were you upset that I forgot? Joseph tightened his hold on me slightly. What do you think? Embarrassment burned hot on my face as my eyes fell to the ring now adorning my left hand. He suddenly grew serious, his voice low and steady. Selena, let me ask you properly this time. Will you be my girlfriend? My breath caught, my chest tightening with emotion. I gently pushed Joseph away, raising my left hand with a smirk. You've already put a ring on me. What do you think? Joseph's gaze darkened, clearly dissatisfied with my teasing. Fine. This moody temper of his guessed it's my job to indulge him. Okay, I muttered, my voice barely above a whisper. I'll say yes. Joseph's voice immediately rose in exasperation. Selena. Laughing, I leaned forward, wrapping my arms around his neck. Standing on my toes, I brushed a soft kiss against his cheek. He froze for a second before breaking into a smile, and soon we were both laughing. That weekend, Joseph showed up at my house carrying an absurd number of gifts. Usually, my parents were composed and polite around him, but today, I could see a trace of nervousness on his face, which made me laugh out loud when he stumbled over his words. My mother, ever the opportunist, hid a sly smile before calling me into the kitchen. Moments later, Joseph's parents arrived, further escalating the chaos. During dinner, my dear mother clasped Joseph's mom's hand, beaming radiantly. Should we start planning the wedding already? Joseph's mom didn't miss a beat, grabbing my hand to inspect it. Of course. We need to draft a guest list soon. I can't wait for their wedding. By the time the weekend ended, my parents and Joseph's had already made plans for a joint vacation. Just giving you young lovebirds some space, my mother had said with a wink. Dating Joseph was, in many ways, a bittersweet experience. First of all, our pictures kept popping up on the campus forums. I wasn't used to being the subject of constant chatter, and the attention made me uncomfortable. Secondly, I discovered just how busy Joseph really was. Before this, I hadn't realized how much he juggled daily. And then there was his possessiveness, a maddening trait I hadn't fully noticed until we got together. The same night we confirmed our relationship, he eagerly posted pictures of us on his social media. He even changed his profile picture to match mine. If that wasn't enough, he demanded that I also post our photos and switch my profile picture to a couple's avatar. But the only couple photo I had was from kindergarten. Soon, my phone was flooded with congratulatory messages from my friends. With Nina's big mouth, news spread at lightning speed. Not long after, photos of Joseph and me hugging outside the bar surfaced on the campus forum. The next day, 2 trending topics exploded, #Joseph's heart is taken. #Adam's feelings were misplaced after all, #staring at the screen. I swallowed hard. I had never minded when people stared at Joseph or gossiped about him before. But now that I was the subject of those same curious eyes, I felt completely out of place. Joseph, however, walked around proudly, holding my hand. If you don't start remembering things soon, I'll lose my mind from all the nagging. He was, of course, talking about the confession from a year ago. Feeling guilty, I kept my mouth shut. A month into dating Joseph, I was at my wit's end. He was busy constantly on the move. After classes, he'd disappear without a trace. As someone who wanted to spend every waking moment with their significant other, I couldn't take it anymore. I pulled out my phone and shot him a message, right now, immediately, show up in front of me. 10 minutes later, Joseph's car pulled up outside my dorm. Leaning against the door, his long legs stretched out, he looked effortlessly cool. Whatever anger I had melted away instantly. Forget it, I just wanted a hug. I threw myself into his arms, breathing in the fresh, minty scent of him, and felt an overwhelming sense of contentment. But something in Joseph's gaze seemed evasive. Alarm bells rang in my mind. Was he hiding something from me? Selena, I'm taking you somewhere, he said. My instincts immediately went on high alert. Panicking, I clutched my chest. What are you planning? Don't you dare try anything funny. Joseph smirked, a mischievous glint in his eye. Taking my hand, he led me to his car and practically bundled me inside. He drove us to a gated community, and before I could even process what was happening, he smoothly pulled into the underground parking lot. Tugging on his sleeve, I asked nervously, "What are you doing?" Joseph simply dragged me into a spacious apartment. Before I could ask more, he placed a key in my hand. "This is my gift to you." While I stood there, curious and bewildered, taking in the luxurious space, Joseph locked the door behind us and steered me toward the master bedroom. The only furniture in the room was a bed. As we walked, he casually began unbuttoning his shirt. When his hand grazed the black stockings on my legs, he frowned slightly. "From now on, you can only wear black stockings at home. However you want, ripped, lacy, whatever." I stared at his bare chest, the prominent lines of his toned muscles trailing down to where his gray sweatpants hinted at everything else. It wasn't until I found myself staring at the spinning ceiling that I finally understood what Joseph meant by testing if I'm really gay. After that, Joseph and I began our shamelessly cohabitant lifestyle. He remained as busy as ever juggling his studies and his startup. Occasionally, he'd bring his business partner, Adam, home to work late into the night. Living together, I truly realized how packed his schedule was. But then, glancing at the healthy balance in our bank account, I couldn't help but smirk. Him being busy was fine by me. If my husband wasn't home often, at least I had plenty of money to spend. When I told Nina about this thought, Joseph suddenly leaned into my ear and murmured, "I hear your husband doesn't come home?" Blinking innocently, I played dumb. "Huh? What? I never said that. Isn't my dear husband standing right here in front of me?" Later, I found out that Nina, the little traitor, had started secretly dating Adam. On the day of our university graduation, Joseph went down on one knee in front of everyone and asked, "Selena, will you marry me?" How could I possibly say no? The moment the officiant announced that we could kiss as husband and wife, the knot of anxiety in my chest finally loosened. All the surreal moments leading up to this point dissipated like smoke. During our university years, Joseph's mom often took me shopping whenever she had time. Now, looking at a wardrobe filled with gorgeous coats, I couldn't stop grinning. On our wedding day, my father, his face glowing with joy, placed my hand in Joseph's. At that moment, the boy who never cried, not even when he was hurt as a child, burst into tears as he took my hand. After the ceremony, Joseph became the subject of endless teasing. "Man, you were crying like a baby at the wedding. It was so moving. Looks like Selena has you completely wrapped around her finger." Joseph brushed off the remarks with a grin. "I'm happy to be her slave for life." From that day on, he earned the nickname Henpecked Husband. Whenever there were company dinners or business events, Joseph always had the perfect excuse to decline. "My wife insists I come home for dinner." But once he got home, his demeanor completely shifted. "Darling, you're in charge of everything off the bed, but on the bed it's my turn to call the shots." In those moments, I always felt the urge to slap him across the face, but my wobbly, weak legs made it impossible. If I could, I'd kick him hard at least twice.
Selena and I grew up together, attending the same kindergarten, elementary school, middle school, high school, and even university. Before our college applications, she got so stressed that she ended up drinking too much and throwing up by a tree. Disgusted, I grabbed her by the collar to keep her from falling into her own mess. Between sobs, she kept mumbling about how she only got a D in math. I had to stifle my laughter. Tears streaked her face, and her lips quivered as she cried. For some reason, watching her made my chest tighten. I couldn't help but think her lips looked very kissable. "If you didn't do well, I can teach you," I said. "Math was never a problem for me. You can teach me now, but will you teach me for a lifetime?" She asked. "We're not even going to the same university. How can you talk about a lifetime? So childish." As I listened to her, I realized something. I'd gotten used to having Selena by my side. The idea of being apart during university felt unthinkable. That night, I came to a stark realization I liked Selena. But then, she seemed to forget everything we talked about. Even the promise to be together if we got into the same university. On the night of our high school graduation, she pinned me against a tree. I was frustrated. How could she forget? That was the first time I confessed to her, and she just forgot. But afterward, I regretted my reaction. I had planned to make a grand confession after we got our acceptance letters. But she beat me to it. How could I let her, the girl, take the lead? My parents always joked about how my mom was the one who made the first move, and my dad's lack of initiative became a running gag. Determined to avoid the same fate, I pushed her away, albeit reluctantly, and started plotting how to confess to her properly. After all, I had given up a better university option just to go to the same school as Selena. All I ever wanted was to be with her. But things didn't go as planned. She stopped talking to me and even started avoiding me. I'll admit, I was clueless when it came to relationships. When she ignored me, I had no idea how to handle it. So, I waited for her outside her dorm. But she still ignored me. Worse, some guy named Dylan started walking her home. I was furious. How could she confess to me and then let another guy walk her back to her dorm? After that night, when we parted ways at her dorm, I regretted it again. After hearing from Adam that Selena was at the bar, I couldn't hold myself back. When I saw her sitting next to Dylan, I lost it. And that damn hand of his kept creeping closer to Selena. What I had never told Selena was that after that night, I secretly arranged a fight with Dylan. I didn't want her to know. I feared she'd think I was childish. But I couldn't let it slide. His hand had been on my baby's shoulder. Selena's body belongs to me, only me. On our wedding day, I was a bundle of nerves. I imagined how I should hold Selena's hand 1,000 times. My heart racing with every thought. When I finally saw her walking down the aisle in her wedding dress, my heart skipped a beat. Images of Selena throughout her life flashed in my mind. That beautiful girl, the one who was finally going to be my wife. In that moment, I felt my heart swell with happiness. When her father placed her hand in mine, I knew then that I would forever be her prisoner. For a long time after the wedding, Adam kept teasing me, "How's the life of a whipped husband?" Honestly, I didn't mind. I was happy to be whipped if it meant Selena was the one calling the shots. Whenever I had to attend a business dinner and had to drink, I'd pat Adam on the shoulder and say, "My wife has rules. I need to get home." The look on Adam's face was priceless every time, and I couldn't help but smile smugly. "You wouldn't understand," I'd tell him. "Selena gets mad. And you're still single, so you don't get it." But Adam, being the troublemaker he is, would always complain to Nina, who would then tell Selena. Selena would grab my ear and say, "Did I hear that you've been telling people you're whipped?" I'd act all hurt but keep quiet. Wasn't that what she wanted? For me to be whipped? 3 years after our marriage, we had our bundle of joy. The day Selena went into labor was the most anxious I've ever been in my life. Watching her frown and sweat as she labored, I almost regretted the decision to have the child. But after the baby was born, everything changed. From that moment on, I went from being her husband to the father of the child. We had a little girl, whom Selena named Lily. Holding that little bundle of joy, I should have been ecstatic. But I was worried. Every time I thought of some boy chasing after my little Lily, my heart would tighten. It was Selena's beauty, after all. She passed it on to our daughter. As Lily grew up, Selena's temper seemed to get worse. Whenever Lily did something wrong, Selena would take it out on me. If I came home late, I'd be the one to bear the brunt of it. If Lily got a D in her math test, I'd get the blame. What could I do? All I could do was keep comforting her. Even when she was angry, I thought it was adorable. When Lily got older and asked me how I could tolerate Selena's bad temper, I'd just smile. Because Selena wasn't just my wife, she was the girl I had loved since we were kids. Our love never faded. If anything, it grew stronger with time. Selena became more than just my wife. She became a part of my soul. I loved her deep in my bones. After Lily graduated from college, Selena and I finally got to enjoy our life together again. We traveled the world, living the dream retirement. Eventually, we settled by the sea, a place where we could relax in our golden years. Even as time left its marks on her face, in my heart, Selena was still that carefree, vibrant girl I had fallen for. I looked at her now, lying on the beach soaking in the sun, a few strands of white in her hair. I touched her gently, filled with both love and bittersweet nostalgia. Who would have thought? Selena suddenly slapped my hand away. Are you saying I'm getting old? I quickly raised my hands in surrender. Of course not. My hair is falling out, and you haven't complained about me at all. I gazed at Selena's vibrant face in the sunlight, and suddenly, the image of her beauty on our wedding day flooded my mind. My dear wife, happy 50th anniversary. End of the story.